أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. So our discussion for tonight, which is our 29th lesson on learning how to read the Holy Quran, deals with the topic of what are called Huruful Muqatta'at. And in English we can call these the broken letters, the cut letters, the abbreviated letters. And what it refers to are those letters that appear at the beginning of 29 surahs of the Quran. And these letters do not form words as we normally understand words. So they show up at the beginning of 29 surahs, 29 chapters of the Quran. And when you read these special letters, these huruf al-muqatta'at, you say the name of the letters instead of their sounds. With the rest of the Quran, when we're reading the ayat, we're reading the verses, we pronounce the sounds of the letters, not their names. But when it comes to these letters and these 29 chapters of the Quran, we read the names of the letters and not their sounds. So let's look at these huruf al-muqatta'at that show up in the Quran. So for example, in the beginning of the second surah, Al-Baqarah, and the third surah, um, Ali Imran, and so on, there are a number of surahs that begin with these letters. So when we see this at the beginning of a surah of the Quran, the way that we read it is by saying the names of the letters. We say Alif Lam Mim, because this is an Alif, this is a Lam, this is Mim. So we say Alif Lam Mim. It's very simple. And some of these combinations of letters, these huruf al-muqatta'at, they show up in multiple chapters of the Quran. Like Alif Lam Mim shows up in a few places. Next we have this one. We read it as Alif Lam Mim Sad. And when we read it without leaving any breaks in between the letters. So if we're applying rules of tajweed to our recitation, the same rules will apply to these letters as well. So for example, here we have Alif, Lam, and then Mim. So when we say Lam, the Lam ends with a Mim. And then the next letter is a Mim. So we have this rule that when two Mems join one after the other, the second one gets a Shad that we read with Ghanna, we extend it. So we say Alif, Lam, Mim, Sad. And when we say Sad, we have to read the Dal sound at the end of Sad with Qalqala. We say Sad. Next is Alif, Lam, Ra, which you'll see at the beginning, for example, Surah Yusuf, the beginning of Surah Ibrahim. Very simple. Alif, Lam, Ra. Next we have Alif, Lam, Mim, Ra. This is, for example, at the beginning of, I believe, Surah Ar-Ra'd, the 13th Surah. Alif, Lam, Mim, Ra. Then we have this combination of 5 letters that is at the beginning of Surah Maryam, the 19th Surah. So we read it as Kaf, Ha, Ya, Ain, Sad. So when we say Ain, it has a noon sound at the end, so we have to apply ikhfa. Ain, and then Sad, the dal has qalqal at the end. Next we have at the beginning of Surah Taha, the letters Ta and Ha. So we say Taha. Next we have Ta, Sin, Sin and Mim. But remember that we apply the rules of tajweed. So when we say Sin, the letter Sin itself at the end has a noon sound, Sin. But we have that rule that when we have a noon sound with a sakin, like in the name of the letter Sin, followed by a Mim, the noon sound becomes silent and the Mim gets a shad. So we say Sim, Mim. We don't pronounce the noon sound at the end of the letter Sin. So we say Ta, Sim, Mim. Okay. Next, simple. Ta, Sin. Then our next one at the beginning of Surah Yasin, these two letters, Yasin, the letter Ya, the letter Sin. Very simple. Next we have Sad. Our next one is, and this Hamim shows up, I believe it's 7 chapters of the Quran, 7 surahs that begin with these two letters. Hamim. Then we have Hamim, Ain, Sin, Qaf. Hamim, Ain, Sin, Qaf. Our next combination, well, the combination is just one letter by itself. Qaf. This is the beginning of Surah Qaf, the 50th Surah of the Holy Quran. Then we have one of the surahs of the Quran starts with this special letter by itself, Noon. So those are what you're going to see. Alif Lam Mim, Alif Lam Mim Sad, Alif Lam Ra, Alif Lam Mim Ra, Kaf Ha Ya Ain Sad, Taha, Ta Sin Mim, Ta Sin, Yasin, Sad, Hamim, Hamim Ain Sin Qaf, Qaf, Noon. And these are the huruf al-muqatta'at. Some of them will be in the beginning of more than one surah of the Holy Quran. So altogether, 29 chapters of the Quran begin with these letters. So let's just look at a few quick examples of these huruf al-muqatta'at at the beginning of certain chapters. So here we have Surah Al Imran, the 3rd surah of the Holy Quran. And we have here the first ayah, Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. And then we have here Alif Lam Mim, just like we practiced. Alif Lam Mim. And you'll notice sometimes that you have these marks on top of some of the letters. That means that when you are reciting it with tajweed, you have to extend the sounds of these. So you have to say Alif Lam Mim. Our next example is from Surah Maryam, the 19th surah of the Holy Quran. So here we have Kaf, Ha, Ya, Ain, Sad. So we have these marks, the mad marks above Kaf, Ain, and Sad. So we have to extend those even more. We say Kaf, Ha, Ya, Ain, Sad. And our last example, this is Surah Yasin, the 36th surah of the Holy Quran. Here we have Ya, Sin, and that extension is above the Sin. So we say Yasin again. Yasin. So this is the end of our lesson for tonight.